Five, four, three, two, one.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Eskin, and on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it is my privilege to welcome you to our nonprofit empowerment webinar series. And this topic is adding interns to your team. The notion, the model of a college intern is nothing new. It's been around for a good chunk of the last century. But I would say right now, and we're going to talk about two experts from Texas A&M University. The first one is someone I've had the privilege to know now. I think it's getting close to 3 years. Jenny Moore is an ridiculously talented clinical professor of communication and founder of the Jaguar Student Media, and she has all these awards that I'm not going to take the hour to read. Jenny, welcome. I'm going to get to you in a moment. And I also would like to introduce a new friend, Misty Frazier, who's internship coordinator at the May Center at Texas A&M, and we have all sorts of information in which they're going to share how a nonprofit can put together matches and a very productive win-win-win internship. But I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to pick on my good friend Jenny. Could you tell us, you've been in higher education. I believe you started when A&M San Antonio launched in 2009, and you had to teach virtually. And I hear you all are going to go back to in person. What was it like teaching virtually?
Jim, it's really nice to be here. Like everyone else, I think it was a bit of a shock to flip modes and teach virtually. I think our greatest concern was for the students and how they were going to adapt. And they adapted beautifully. It wasn't easy for anyone, but I think that it was just a shock to the system for a lot of students, especially since they were not only adjusting to health concerns, but many of them had to take on extra jobs as essential workers at HEB or other local entities. So it was challenging, but they're doing very, very well. So my understanding, it's a bit of a moving target, but here at A&M San Antonio, about 10% of classes are coming back online. Well, they'll be face-to-face, 70% will remain online, and the remaining percent will be hybrid courses.
Well, Misty and Jenny, I'm in the business of asking people for things. I'm going to ask you all, can you express our sincere appreciation to President Mattson? Texas A&M University San Antonio has become such a fabulous resource and addition to our higher education infrastructure. And I can say it, I'm biased because I think it's about the only place I didn't work. But I really admire the job and her vision that President Mattson has done. So please convey our appreciation to her and all your colleagues at A&M. And we're talking about interns, and we're going to talk about how interns can be a win-win-win, and they can be good for the student, they can be good for the academic institution, and they can be good for the employer. In this case, we're talking about the nonprofits. Every arena I know has a superstar. And in talking with Misty and Jenny, we quickly found a superstar as far as the communication interns. And I believe, by the way, you all have graduation coming up this weekend. Is that right? So you're going to lose Mario, but can you talk about your superstar communications intern, Mario Ruiz?
Yeah, I'd love to talk a moment about Mario. Mario's a non-traditional student, meaning he's not of the traditional age set from 18 to 22. He has a family, he's working full-time in the visual department at a TV station locally, but he's also wanting to pursue a full-time career in graphic design. So he actually interned at a nonprofit at House of Neighborly Service. And he's a great example, I think, for your viewers of a full-time working student who has the time and the skill to provide value to the company as well as, had some takeaways from the nonprofit to increase his skills as a graphic designer. So it's a win-win, I think, for both the nonprofit and the student who came away from that experience 15 weeks this semester with a lot more skill and samples for his portfolio. So he really was a star in terms of balancing all the things that our non-traditional students do here at the university.
And I wanted to start, I think every nonprofit out there, I was in it for more than 30 years, they want to help their story. You tell your story and then you can ask for money, but you better tell your story first. And we were talking about 3 ways, and I know there are more than 3 ways that communications interns can help tell a nonprofit story. And can you talk a little, number one, they can help shoot and produce videos.
Right. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to do the segment for nonprofit leaders. I mean, there's nothing more important than an organization to be able to tell its story well. And that's not just about writing anymore. It's not just about making phone calls to donors. Having students in-house who have experience producing videos and telling that story in a multimedia format, I think can be a really valuable skill set. And not everyone in-house is equipped to do that. Most students who come into the public universities in town are already walking around with their own equipment. We do, of course, buy our equipment for students, but many of them even have nicer equipment coming into our facilities than we offer them. And they carry that right into their internships. So that's another added benefit, is that students are well prepared to tell those stories in video format.
And the other thing, I don't know of a nonprofit website out there that wouldn't like some help getting updated. And can you talk about what a communications intern can do there?
Right. Yeah. Even this semester, we had probably 4 or 5 students who were at nonprofits who were getting under the hood of those websites and helping nonprofits understand how to improve their analytics. In tandem, they're working on the social media and teaching some of the team members how to use Hootsuite and other social media management systems. So the students in our program have to do digital portfolios, so they're accustomed to using Wix and WordPress and other CMSs.
I think another common denominator, I don't care how big or how small your nonprofit is and what sector, for animal welfare, your education, your seniors, your child, you want to get out probably an electronic e-newsletter. Can you talk about how your interns could help there?
But as someone who works for a nonprofit at a university and someone who's worked at many other nonprofits, I know that there's always so much work to be done in the communications field, and never enough people or times and hours in the day to get it all done. So our students are used to doing newsletters as well.
Okay, we have 3 overarching objectives today. We're going to talk about what interns can do. In fact, we already have addressed that a little. We're going to talk about intern matches, and we're going to talk, importantly, how the nonprofit could work with a Texas A&M or a college to create a win that's a win for the student, that's a win for the nonprofit, and it's a win for A&M or whoever the academic partner is. One of our learning community regulars is on screen. Is there anything else at the moment, Cheryl, that you would like to learn about internships?
Oh, could you go ahead and unmute yourself, Cheryl? Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know that we've attempted on the nonprofit board that I serve on currently. We have.
You want to identify which one we like to promote?
Well, a few of my fellow board members are on this call also.
Well, let's promote it as the San Antonio
SA Cancer Council.
Center. Yeah, well, and is Mary Downey the new president?
Correct.
She's fantastic.
She's with us on this meeting.
Okay, she's fantastic. Mary D. Okay.
And Kristen Bino also serves on our board. She's with us at this meeting.
And what else would you like to learn about nonprofits?
About the internship?
Yeah.
Okay. We have tried several times approaching different universities here in town. And what our needs have not met the model of the internships that they offer. So either in the number of hours per week, the number of hours per month, or just the overall program. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about how to navigate that.
Okay, let's make sure Misty and Jenny. I wanted to say we do these webinars just about weekly. Is any chance is Charlotte Ann Lucas on, or is she out working for Nowcast SA? Charlotte Ann, are you on?
I certainly am, and I just actually bumped off of another thing so I could be here on time.
Well, listen, Charlotte Ann and I know each other well. I believe you know Jenny and me. But Charlotte Ann, guess what? You're going to be the expert next week. And can you give anyone, I guess, a 30-second tease of what we're going to talk about in the do's and don'ts of virtual communication?
So I run Nowcast SA. We're sort of seen by a lot of people. We're a nonprofit that's seen by a lot of people as sort of a local C-SPAN because we do so much video, and that was before COVID turned everybody virtual. And so what we were able to do since last March is take all of the things that we learned live streaming from all over San Antonio, including from Texas A&M San Antonio, and try to put those things in place so that to help people do better, present better and look better and sound better in their virtual online presentations.
Well, I'm skipping. Okay, very good. And by the way, any questions? I've been to your offices. It's been a while, but you certainly know how to not take advantage. You know how to empower yourself through internships.
Oh, yes. And I'm actually very proud that we have some of Jenny's students, Texas A&M San Antonio students in our intern Hall of Fame that goes back to 2009. And so every one of them gets a spot on the intern Hall of Fame, and hopefully before even the end of their internship also has a link in their bio to their LinkedIn so that people can hire them and let them soar and go amazing places. And so yes, we do have a relationship with Texas A&M San Antonio and interns from there. And thank you, Jenny.
Thank you,
Okay, by the
Charlie.
way, we have a tradition at this point. Our mantra, and my wife Andrea developed this art here that we're tempted to make t-shirts once people can go out and be seen in t-shirts. Nonprofit strong. And so I'd like everybody to type in the chat space, the 3 words, nonprofit strong. I'd like to ask Jenny, what are we?
Nonprofit strong.
You're exactly right. Misty, what are we?
Nonprofit strong.
You're exactly right. Cheryl, what are we?
Nonprofit strong.
Everybody gets an A. At this time, can we bring Nikisha Baker on? We're right on schedule. Nikisha, are you there?
I am, Jim. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. First of all, Nikisha has served as the CEO of SAM Ministries since 2020. She's a newbie. I hope you're out of probation period. But I got to tell you, thank you on behalf of the community. The work you all do working with the homeless is absolutely inspiring and so important. So thank you to you and your team of both professionals and volunteers, and the hope that you provide to the homeless. Could you do 2 things? One, shouldn't be too hard. Give us an update. What has it been like for SAM over a year of COVID? And then we'd like to talk, I know you've had a lot of internships, what you think is a good internship and what you think is less than a good internship. So you have 2 homework assignments here.
Okay, well, let's keep me on track to make sure I get them both right.
Okay.
So SAM Ministries, of course, is a nonprofit organization committed to serving the homeless and those at risk of becoming homeless in San Antonio. In the wake of COVID-19, I reported to my board last night that at the 6-month mark, we have served, at the 6-month mark in our fiscal year, we have served 1,000 more households this year than we did at the same time last year.
Hey, could you
That
do
is-
me a favor? Repeat
Yes.
that, please. Repeat that. I don't want people to lose that. Repeat that.
We have served 1,000 more households at this point in the fiscal year, which is the 6-month mark, than we did in the previous fiscal year at the same time. We are,
Congratulations.
well, thank you, I think.
Oh, all right.
We are on target to serve about 1,800 additional households when we reach the fiscal year end. But, you know, in this business, our goal would be to see a decrease in need rather than such a tremendous increase in need.
Yeah.
We're blessed to be able to serve that way. And we provide short and long-term housing interventions. We provide rent and utility assistance, and we provide wraparound supportive services that help families and individuals become self-sufficient for the long term. So that is who SAM Ministries is in a nutshell.
Okay. And okay, now we'd like you to share your perspective on what defines a good internship and what defines a less than good internship.
Absolutely. So I think that a good internship, at least from my personal experience, is one where you have buy-in from your team about bringing interns or an intern into an organization, that you have a clear vision in terms of expectation, both on behalf of your organization and what you would like to see from an intern or a group of interns, that you have checkpoints along the way, and that you've created a relationship. I'm big on relationships, but you've created a relationship where your intern can ask questions, can get thoughtful feedback and answers, and at the same time that you can challenge them to grow maybe outside of their comfort zone.
Fantastic. And that really sets the stage now. And before we go to our Q&A dialogue, I'd like to introduce our producer, Michael Largent from Game Day Media, to explain how either you can share a question or comment by typing it in the chat space. Better yet, we want to see you and come on camera and share your comments or questions that way. Okay, Michael?
Yeah, so yeah, just like Jim was saying, if you have a question while you're listening, you can either type it into the chat space, or when we stop for questions, you can actually turn on your mic and your camera and ask the question that way, which is what we really prefer, because we want to be able to talk to you and get your questions that way.
And see you. And also when you come on, we want to know what nonprofit you're with, because we consider this a learning community. I'll tell you what, Misty and Jenny, consider yourself like a tag team. And I'm probably going to maybe start with one of you. If the other wants to add a point or two, that's up to your discretion. So we're going to make this very interactive and conversational. But I'm kept on talking about win-win-win. So let's start with Jenny. How do students win in internships?
Most importantly, the students are receiving hands-on experience. They're developing their portfolios, and they're receiving the opportunity to network outside of the campus. Faculty relationships are very important, and the content of the courses is crucial. But hand in hand, like Nikisha so eloquently put it, the partnerships with nonprofits and the agencies are really crucial to them advancing their careers and learning the norms of the workplace.
You know, and that goes right to our next question. How primarily does the employer, in this case a nonprofit, benefit through an internship?
Misty, that sounds like a great one for you.
Sure. Lots of ways, actually. So similar to some of the things Nikita mentioned too, it's really an opportunity to test out new talent. So it contributes a lot to the talent pipeline. There's a lot of exposure to skill sets that maybe current employees might not have, that an intern can bring a new perspective. intergenerational work environments. So if you have, different generations working together, you learn as much as the students can learn too. Also too, like junior employees can earn supervision skills. A lot of organizations, have some coordinators or maybe other staff who are supervising the interns and working with them. And then you get to brand yourself with students, with the university, and to the general public, and that you have this kind of program.
Very good. And Jenny, let's complete the triangle. How does the academic institution benefit through an internship?
Through partnerships and relationships in the community. And beyond that, the silver lining of COVID was that we were able to extend our relationships across the country. So now we have interns who are interning virtually in different states. So that builds the reputation, especially for a young university that's a Hispanic serving institution. A lot of companies are very interested in acquiring Texas talent. So it introduces them to our students. However, I will say that we're even more interested in developing relationships with agencies locally, because so many of our students are invested here, non-traditional students with families who would like to continue to live and work in our amazing city.
I'll tell you what, let's flip the coin, so to speak. We were talking how the student, the nonprofit, and the academic partner wins. Let's talk about, expectations for each of those three parts of the win. And so let's talk, what are, and both of you can chime in. I'll start with Jenny. What's the expectation for a student to participate in an internship?
Well, like Cheryl mentioned, as she was trying to develop relationships with different universities, each university has a different program. It can be program by program. Different colleges can have different expectations as well. The students in our program are expected to dedicate about 100 hours. However, given the circumstances, I'm much more flexible. We do projects, we do short-term internships instead of expecting the traditional 15-week internship, because everybody's needs have shifted. I think it's really important that, like your previous guest mentioned, that there be some tangible connections between the expectations between the agency side and the university side.
And who wants to take, how does the nonprofit, what's expected from the nonprofit? Who wants to take that one?
I can do that one.
Please.
Well, it really depends. Each nonprofit and each internship position really varies, right? So there are best practices in how employers can communicate expectations to the university and to the students. Really, the best way is to develop a program manual for your internship program specifically. So making sure that it's clear you have the infrastructure in place to support intern, you have the staff in place to support the intern. It should contain all of the information about your program. This is similar to a student, like you can also have a manual for your program, a manual for the students. Just simple things like that to really help guide and know the details about those kinds of expectations, and being able to communicate that really clearly to the university and to the students who are interested in applying.
And that brings us back to Jenny. What are the expectations for the college or the university? What do they need to contribute to the internship?
Well, for students who are registering and paying tuition for a 3-credit-hour class, the expectation is that they'll be doing a certain number of hours at the agency site. The college, I will be honest with you, is not overly invested in how the instructors teach the internship course. They just want to ensure that students are receiving ample credit and that they're getting valuable experience, but it's not restrictive. And that's good, because that means that each department has its own flexibility. New to our university is the May Center and Misty Frazier. So she provides us, good segue to your next slide, is our best practices. So we're happy to have that resource.
Misty, talk about now, I think this is getting to Cheryl's question. Talk about how the internship comes together?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do lots of trainings with employers on this exact thing, and so I'd be happy to connect with any of you who are interested too in developing or just making improvements even to your program. So there are several models out there. There's no one model. It really depends on your organization and what your goals are for your internship program. But overall, just making sure that students are having a holistic experience. These are a few models that we look at and utilize for that. And it's really about the student learning component. And so that's a key element that we at the university are always looking for these internship programs to have, is what is the student really going to be learning, and what are they going to be able to take away. The enrichment process is one way to look at it in terms of buckets of areas where the students can really have those enhanced learning experiences. And so your organization can look at all four of these. Maybe you want to focus on one area in particular, but definitely thinking about the student learning component in addition to what are the tasks and the skills and the projects that might be needed to be managed.
One thing I wanted to add, Jim,
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
is that this is really, I want to emphasize the role of a public university in a community. When Misty offered these resources and the ability to train employers and set up an internship program, that's exactly how a university should be investing students in the community. So that's wonderful that you all are doing that.
Let's talk a little, what's the interaction? Say Eskin Fundraising Training wants to partner wants to partner with the communications program at Texas A&M. Talk about what's the process between the nonprofit, or in this case, private sector employer, and the university to design a program.
To make it gel and all happen. So career services on any university is the first point of contact. If you have a strong career services, if you already have a relationship with a faculty member, like if Charlotte Ann reached out to me and said, hey, I need an intern, consider it done. Once you establish those relationships with faculty who are working closely with their students, which not all faculty do. So I would say first career services, and then working directly with a department that has a curriculum that's of interest and connected to what you do.
Yeah. Before we jump to this slide, you know, my late mother inspires this question. We're talking about what is an internship? What is not an internship?
Misty, do you want to take that one on? I have a long list.
Yeah. There are a lot of things an internship cannot be, and really it's important to think about the learning that's going to be involved. If you're looking to fill a position that you typically would have filled with somebody as a job, as somebody who has experience in that professional position, then it might not be an internship. That's most clearly the one that I get questions about the most. So it's really depends on what it is that your program and your structure is going to entail, and then what is the student going to benefit from it exactly. So
Right.
if you want to share some more of yours.
I would just add to that an internship is not wanting an intern. An internship is pre-planning and designing it and working with a faculty member to even write a draft of a syllabus so that you have major projects mapped out. And hopefully having some sort of incentive for the mentor who's going to spend considerable time working with the student, not to babysit them, but as we said earlier, but to provide them a mentorship and training program and derive value from that.
Misty, this was, I thought, some fascinating research you provided, and I was wondering if you can take a minute to share what it means to our nonprofits who might be considering internships as we speak.
Sure, absolutely. So this is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. It's called NACE. And this is really research that they did in terms of what are some of the influences that our employers have in terms of hiring students. So number one is they complete an internship with the organization that they're working for, right? Again, so talking about that pipeline of talent. Also, the intern had any experience in your industry as well. I know employers are always looking for that, and they're always looking for those matches there. Also, the major is a key factor that employers look for, as well as leadership, and then just work experience. Do you know what the world of work is really like? So those would be really the top.
Would it count if I had worked, say, at
indicators.
McDonald's? Would that count?
Well, if you have a great career advisor, career counselor to work with you on how does McDonald's skill set,
I made the best fries in the world. How's that? I made the best, and that's right. I love McDonald's fries.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are corporate positions available at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I have plenty of more questions, but we're an audience first show. Michael, do we have anybody who would like to type a question in the chat space, or better yet, come on camera? And let me throw out something else. Jenny and Misty have been generous enough to say they would be welcome to put you in the vetting process. So if you are interested in learning about an internship, we can put you at the front of the line, but you gotta come on camera.
So it doesn't look like well, Charlotte Ann just oh, you want to hop on camera, Charlotte Ann?
Yep. I'm Misty. I'm thrilled that you're working with employers about making a map. I had a huge advantage when I came into this, and that was that I had done I taught at UNLV for a couple of years, and then also adjuncted, and so I was like familiar with the concept of syllabus, which really didn't exist when I went to college a long time ago, and so I basically turned that into my intern job description, which was really cool. But for a lot of other folks who don't have that advantage, it's wonderful that you're there and ready to help them with that, because making clear expectations at the outset is probably the biggest thing the students taught me in my in my internships with folks. One of the things that I have struggled with, and I think is really, really important, and with the interns, is to encourage interns when they're working with me to reach out to their networks and to ask for help. And so instead of just like thinking that they have to go come up with a solution to this problem all by themselves, which is the way universities tend to teach kids, no cheating, no asking other people for help. And in the real world, you are only as strong as your network. And so that's one of the things that I struggle with kids, to try to get them, excuse me, not kids, students, to try to get them to reach out to their networks and reach out to other people to help them get the information they need, whether they're computer science, public health, journalism, whatever. And I'm curious how much you see that changing in the university framework.
Thank you. That's a great question. And who wants to start?
I could start a little bit, and then I'd love to hear Jenny's perspective too. But Charlotte Ann, first, thank you so much for being an advocate for that, because that is huge. We all know, and statistic even says, people get their positions through networking. I think even Jim was talking about that too in an internship he had. It was networking, and so that still is the way that people are getting positions. And so helping students to learn how to do that and work through that is really valuable and important, and it will continue to be even in a virtual space. We've found that networking can still happen, and be very beneficial. So in terms of how we're teaching students how to do that, it depends. It depends on the student's major. It depends on their career interest even, and then getting them plugged into those things, giving them the language that they need to how to even ask. Sometimes it's as simple as that. I've worked in career services and as a career counselor for about 8 years. And that's one of the things that I was working with them on, is just developing, okay, what should you say? How should you even ask to meet with somebody who's doing what you're interested in doing? And just giving them the words too is really essential there. But thank you for your advocacy in that, because it is huge.
Mm.
Now,
I like everything that Misty said. Teaching those foundation skills is really critical. It took me a couple years of being in higher ed and in the classroom to realize that networking is a learned skill. For some students, it's more natural than others. I find that with such a high percentage of first and family students, the students who are first in their families to attend college, that there's a lot of psychological challenges. A lot of our students have imposter syndrome. I had a student text me. A lot of my students have my cell phone number, and she said, am I getting a bachelor's degree apostrophe, or is it spelled differently? I have no one else to ask. I don't know exactly how to spell this. And I thought that's so amazing. And I wrote back to her, that's why we're here. That's why your instructors are here, to teach you, to mentor you, to provide all this information for you. And it seems like a really simple question, but it's not for a student who's never attended college before. So, and in terms of networking, it takes practice, and some students are really reticent to get out there, but they learn. So we teach students in the newsroom. We're teaching journalism courses, so they're already mic'd up, and it's a little bit easier for them.
And of course,
Let me ask both
and with the
you-
journalism ones, we make sure that they're part of the SPJ and NAHJ, local NAHJ and stuff like that, so that they get that kind of professional networking too.
Yes, San Antonio is a really lovely town in terms of networking. I've never lived in a city that was so good to students.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's the law of 6 degrees of separation says that we're all separated on the planet by no more than 6 personal relationships, with the exception of Kevin Bacon. But in San Antonio, it's 2 degrees of separation. It's just amazing. I wanted to ask Misty and Jenny, are there any big differences in putting together a partnership for a for versus a nonprofit organization?
From my perspective, no. You're all providing the students with an opportunity. How it looks, of course, is going to be different for each one. But in terms of the any sort of process, legalities, any of those aspects, no, they would be the same.
Jenny?
And Misty's been my guide in terms of the legalese. And so no, I've, with the exception of one for-profit where there was a lot more paperwork because we had a formal MOU with them, the experience has been the same.
Let me ask a really down-to-earth question. How do you ensure that your intern's not going to be stuck doing a lot of administrative work like copying and collating and folding and stuffing? Things, by the way, that I think I have a PhD in.
Oh, this is an easy one. I mean, I'll start. So in my course, the students have to submit a weekly journal. I provide them a template, a syllabus, and so I may not see them in class each week because my internship class is online, but I'm reading what they're doing each week. And I also have a weekly appointment with them to see how things are going. What is the nature of the work? Are you satisfied with the work? I also will contact agency supervisors to make sure that they're satisfied. Teaching an internship course is actually a lot of work. If you talk to university administration, they may say, oh, it's just an internship course, but it's actually very intensive to make sure that the student is providing value and that the agency is also receiving a good intern.
I can imagine, you know, before in the classroom or the virtual classroom, you know, it's a one-on-one relationship. But with an internship, you got to relate to the student and also to whoever the mentor and is the person responsible at the nonprofit or the organization. You got two lenses, so to speak.
Right. Misty taught me an important skill that I think will be of value to your audience, and that is she helped me design a learning agreement. It's all digitally done in a program called Handshake, which is a platform used by all the students and the employers to post the positions. And that sets the standard at the beginning. So we can approve the internship, we can modify it if the learning goals are not concrete and not If they don't meet muster, then we can work with the agency to revise them.
Yeah. Jenny, you talked before that because of 2020, just like most of the rest of the world, that virtual environments became very popular. So you had a lot of virtual internships. Can you talk about the pros and cons of a virtual internship?
Well, as Visti reminds me, and my other internship mentors remind me, that one of the benefits is that they can intern anywhere. And so for students who are interested in graduating and leaving our city, it provides them networking opportunities.
Can I ask you from where some other locales that you've had internships? Because
I had two Canadian firms, one in California, one in Houston, which is still in Texas, last time I checked, and other states. Not too many on the East Coast, mostly Midwest to West Coast.
ah, interesting.
Mhm.
And as the academic coordinator, was it a lot harder for you to monitor and oversee a virtual versus an in-person internship?
Well, your viewers will probably relate when I say this, that the communication is a little bit tougher. I mean, hands down, students prefer face-to-face internships. But we followed protocol that was provided to us from the Texas A&M system. We did have some who wanted to be face-to-face, and we had to tell them that they had to be remote. So they really enjoy both, but communication is much more challenging when you have a virtual internship. Students miss that contact.
I'm glad we're getting to this question very early in the webinar, and I want everyone to chime in. You know, I worked in higher education for 25 years. You're not getting free labor. The reality, if I check the statistics of A&M San Antonio, I think something like 98% of your students are on some form of financial aid.
Correct.
And so really, the only practical and realistic model is where you are combining, they're getting academic credit, but they're also getting pay. And I want both of you to chime in on that. We'll start with Misty and pay, because I think you get a lot of research that shows different levels for different type of work, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So these really aren't either or, they should be synonymous, and because the students get credit and get paid, that's like really great. So students who do an unpaid internship for academic credit are actually paying for that academic credit, right? So if they're not getting paid in their internship, then they're actually paying to work essentially, and to get the experience. So they, pay the tuition, the fees, any cost for transportation, if they have to purchase professional clothing, anything that's required for the internship. So it could be a greater cost to those students. So being paid for an internship really does help mitigate expenses. And in some majors now, some majors require students to do an internship as part of their academic credit. But some students, are, not required to do that. And then if they're not required to do that, then they don't have to do a course credit internship either. So there's some leeway. It just depends on the academic program. And that's why you'd want to connect with the university and know what's required and what's not for there. In addition to, there's lots of resources. The U.S. Department of Labor has a fact sheet on internships and pay. And while it's caused a little bit of confusion among companies about the pay and unpaid requirements, the bottom line usually is if you would pay a part-time or full-time employee for the same work that you're asking an intern to do, then your internship should probably be paid. So just keep that in mind.
I want to chime. Jenny, you want to talk about the academic credit, because there has to be some credibility to that component.
Right. So as I mentioned before, students have to intern between 100 and 150 hours. That's the general guidance that we've been provided. But I have curtailed that to do shorter term projects as long as they are well designed and provide the students extensive experience, and they can walk away with portfolio samples that they can show to their next internship director or their prospective employer. Beyond that, I'd be curious if the audience has any other questions about credit. I use a lot of academic terms and like 3 credit hour. That simply means the amount of course credit that the student is receiving. Students graduate with 120 credit hours from our program. So that's over the 4 years. So they're just taking one internship over a 15-week semester or 10 weeks in the summer.
Yeah. I wanted to put 2 cents in. That's what it's worth. We talked at the beginning that you can get a communications intern that can produce a video, that can update a website, and that can produce electronic newsletter, which are all essential components of a nonprofit's engagement and cultivation program. And somebody's got to do it. And I don't want to be this blunt, but I see that an internship is a much more cost-effective way. If you can get an internship to produce that, an internship is going to be most likely a part-time job. Usually there'll be no benefits. Help me. The typical benefits equation is something like 27% of salary. I can't think, and you're just paying for more projects and specific outcomes that you can't beat an internship on effectiveness. And by the way, Nikisha, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, you want to chime in? Because you've employed an awful lot of interns. Could you talk about the bang on the buck you got by engaging interns?
Absolutely. I think Jenny and Misty have been right on with the opportunity to hire interns into your workforce. And so particularly on the social work side, Sam Ministries has been able to bring several of our interns on as full-time staff persons in case management roles. Our development department, our marketing department is of course much smaller, right? So there are fewer opportunities to hire into those roles, but we are excited about growing and continuing to grow our ability to host interns and provide a meaningful experience for them.
And I agree, such a big part is the chemistry, and an internship, you really will give you a strong indication of the chemistry between, the intern and the organization that can open up wonderful opportunities in your talent pipeline. The person fits in. I wanted you all to comment, we're not talking, internships aren't just for large organizations, be it a for-profit or nonprofit. Can you talk about some of the smaller organizations? Because I think we have a lot of smaller nonprofits in our learning community today.
And Jim, who is that question for?
Who's that question for? We'll start with Misty. How's that? And talking about internships have been placed at both small, medium, and large organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends on what your needs are and your infrastructure and your availability. I've worked with small businesses who have just been getting started and they're a one-man show, and they could really utilize the internship help. So the first thing is thinking about what kind of support are you able to give to that student, because they're going to come in and they're going to bring a lot of skills and things to the table, but they're not going to know everything. So they are going to need that guidance. And if you're able to do that, I know there's questions in the chat too about, pay and how can we do that? Timing being a challenge. Of course, that's across the board, right, for everyone. So really those things are things that I work with individual organizations on figuring out and thinking about and developing. So I'd be happy to connect with all of you and individually see what your needs are and see what we can do and how I could be.
Let me talk about follow-up. By the way, their contact information, being their office phone number and email addresses, are in the opening slides. And our plan is we're going to send everybody who registered, whether you attended or not, the slides and the recording. We're also going to post that on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we have a short summary of major points have been made today. And then we're also going to post the replay on Facebook and LinkedIn. We give Michael Largent about 60 minutes to do the magic spin dry. I always say, give me one round of Zinfandel. And I was going to say here too, before we started, Jenny asked me, Jim, can you think about your internships? And I hadn't given much thought, and I was very lucky. I went to school in Washington, D.C., George Washington, which really took advantage that Washington is such a unique learning laboratory. And I had the privilege of being an internship in my local congressional office. And in my senior year, I was majoring in urban affairs, and I did an internship at the National Science Foundation on their Department of Innovation for Cities. So, I mean, you talk to people. Charlotte Ann, I'll put you on the spot. Did you do an internship?
I was just thinking back on it. Yes, I am so ancient that at my first newspaper, my first newspaper internship, I had to use the manual typewriter in the newsroom because I didn't have seniority for the electric. And I've been online only web journalist since 1999, so that was a long time ago.
Hey,
and I had one quick question
go
to follow up, Missy. I've obviously I'm sort of miss collegiality because I also have internship relationships with UTSA and Alamo colleges and St. Mary's and you name it, but some of them have the ability for students who are on work study to work with nonprofits, and so they're paid through work study funds. And I wondered if you guys are in that program now as well.
Yes, we are. So I am the person who's running it on our end. So I put my email address, so please email me. I'd be happy to talk through that. We don't know about funding for the next academic year quite yet from the Department of Education, but as soon as we do, then yeah, we're open to new partnerships across the city.
Because that makes it much more possible for poverty-stricken nonprofits to make sure that the students get paid, which is really important.
That's a quadruple win right there.
Win-win. Yeah, it's a cube. Nikisha, I'm putting you on the spot. Did you have an internship?
I did not. I was one of those students who had to who worked full time while going to school, and so I did have some mentors along the way who allowed me to do some public relations projects for them and some design projects that helped me build my portfolio, but no formal internship.
Okay, well, you certainly awarded many. And how about Cheryl Wright? Did you have an internship along your journey?
Actually, I did not. I went straight from the workforce to, from education to the workforce, no internship.
Okay, well, there are all sorts of ways. We're wrapping up. Any questions? I still have a few final points, but any other questions from our audience? And we're going to reinforce the major points. I think what we're hearing from our experts from A&M, and they have done a terrific job of making this subject very fact-filled and conversational. Number one is, what do you want? Define your priorities. Is it marketing? Is it accounting? Is it shoelaces? I ran out of examples. And then you want to reach out. And I'm going to ask, say we're talking in San Antonio, but fortunately we have partners in New Mexico and Connecticut and Illinois. The only trouble is they get confused in the time zone. So about 3 o'clock, I get these ones, how come you guys aren't on or something? And that's because we're in the central time zone. Who should you look? Okay, you're in a university in Timbuktu. Okay, I won't tell you what state. How do you approach your local college or university, Misty?
Just like Jenny said earlier, the career services department.
Okay.
They're usually centralized in most colleges, but if they're not, then you might find them in specific colleges, like for liberal arts or in a business college. But that's usually the best point because they know all the key players, students, they have great resources.
And Misty, if we heard you right, do not think either or. The internship program is going to have two components. There will be the academic credit and there'll be pay. So you really should think that is the realistic model. And remember, A&M, it's amazing. 98% of its 7,600 students are on some form of financial aid. So there's no other practical model. Any other questions? I'm
Jim, I
gonna move
I
quickly
have
here.
one other tip for the nonprofits who do not have internship programs. You might look at programs like Nikisha's. It sounds like they have a very well-structured internship program that's going really well. Reach out to your nonprofit partners and friends and find out what they're doing, because the internships are very scalable. You can have one, you can have many. It can be project, long-term. So I would do that as part of your research in addition to reaching out to the universities.
I'm gonna pick on Nikisha. Boy, do I like that. But I wanted to talk about collaboration. You know, we're both have been in the fundraising arena. Can you share, as someone who's been doing some major gift fundraising, how important it is to show collaboration to the funders?
Absolutely. I had the opportunity to sit on a panel earlier today with Molly Biglari from Haven for Hope and Valerie Salas from Christian Assistance Ministries. We partner together across the board to serve the homeless and those experiencing homeless in our community. It speaks volumes, right, about the idea that we're not duplicating services to families or individuals, that we are complementing the work that one agency does with work that another agency does to make better outcomes for individuals. We like collaboration because we have a niche and we like to stay in our niche. And if we can partner with someone who can complement and walk alongside us, then it makes it easier for all of us. Many hands make light work.
And I think, again, whether it's an individual philanthropist or a corporation or a foundation, they love to see collaboration rather than 100 separate proposals addressing the same social problem. So thank you for that. Another thing we're emphasizing, by the way, we're wrapping up here. Are there any last questions? We might take one more question. Do we have, and come on screen, any other questions?
I think that we had a question from Valerie Finley. I don't know if did her question ever get answered?
Okay, what was it? You know?
It was timing has been a challenge. I have a current need now, and the planning for an intern is 2 or 3 semesters out. How do I navigate this?
Okay, let's put that to Jenny first. Good
Can
question.
you repeat the question? It was a good one.
Sure. So she said timing has been a challenge. I have a current need now for interns, and the planning to get an intern is 2 or 3 semesters out. How do I navigate this?
Great. That means that's a positive. You know exactly what you're doing, what you're up against, and you're starting to organize it. Draw up a posting. Contact the local universities and make sure that you're negotiating the terms and the learning agreement with a career services advisor like Misty, and just work with them in advance and then post it when you're ready. But I think that's a wonderful plan and should be looked at as a positive, because you know that it's coming up. You just have to design it.
I'm gonna close with some traditional fundraising wisdom. The late poet Maya Angelou had a quotation that I adore. She said that people won't remember what you said. They won't even remember what you did to them. They will never forget how you made them feel. And our job as fundraisers and nonprofits are to make our donors and prospective donors feel like they're the most important people in the world to us. By the way, my last question, there is only one, talking about poets, there's only one poet that's ever performed at the presidential inauguration and a Super Bowl. Do you know who that is? Of course, it's Amanda Gorman. And I'd love the title of her poem here is the hill we climb. And I think that really captures the essence of what we do in nonprofit work. This has been a tough year, but we're no strangers to tough years. And I want to thank all our nonprofit learning partners, whether you're a CEO or an executive director, whether you're a director of development or a board member, a volunteer or a donor, each in your own way, you make this a better community, a better state, a better country, a better world. And Misty and Jenny, I always leave with a money back guarantee, a money back guarantee. The more you ask, the more you'll get. The more you ask, the more you get. So I hope all our nonprofit friends will take that to heart. I'd like to thank our friends, Jenny Moore and Misty Frazier. Please tell President Mattson the work that you all are doing at Texas A&M San Antonio is so important, so timely, and has just improved our academic infrastructure and makes us a better community in so many different ways. And thank you for taking an hour for explaining and sharing your expertise in internships in such a friendly way. So we're going to post a very brief summary on LinkedIn and post in Facebook in about 5 minutes. And then Michael's going to do his magic spin cycle, and we're going to post the recording that will have all the slides and all our discussion. And we want to thank everybody for being part of our learning community and the contributions you make to the quality of life. And next week we have Charlotte Ann Lucas, Executive Director of Nowcast SA, leading our workshop on the do's and don'ts of virtual communication. She will tell me not to wave my hand so much, but I'll work on that. So Jenny, Misty, thank you so much. It couldn't be better. And
Thank you so much.
And enjoy graduation weekend, okay?
We've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll be talking. Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Nikisha.
Thank you all.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.